Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked, the series where I talk about every single book on my shelf, because otherwise I would just have to sit and waffle at the camera for 20 minutes 3 times a week, and I don't think anybody wants that. Today I am reviewing one of my 5-star reads from 2020, Legendborn. Now you can see the cover. Isn't it beautiful? It's lovely and shiny. This is going to do the typical paperback thing of just falling off this shelf at some point during this review. Foreshadowing. Before we start, some quick disclaimers. I did buy this book myself from the Portal Bookshop, who I will link below because they are excellent. Nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I'm also going to keep this review spoiler free, so don't worry, but if you do want to go in knowing absolutely nothing about this book, click away now. I do recommend checking out some Own Voices reviews for this book because obviously I am not a person to comment on the representation, to comment on the experience of reading this book, so do go and check those out. Legendborn. I might put the cover a little bit closer for this bit. Legendborn is a YA fantasy book that released in the UK in 2020. As I'm filming this, I don't have any more information on the sequel. All I know is that it's meant to release in 2021, but with all of the pandemic stuff, who knows? Tracy Deonn is an American author who, alongside her writing, has also worked in theatre production and video game something? Production. Theatre, live theatre and video game production. There you go. Her website, which I will link below, describes her as a champion for diversity and representation in science fiction and fantasy literature and media. Legendborn starts with our main character Bree still grieving the loss of her mother, going to early college, which is a thing that I do not know much about, but it's by the by, in order to get away from it all. Of course that doesn't happen, and on her first day on campus she witnesses a magical attack. This event thrusts her into this world of secret societies and generational magic that may have something to do with the death of her mother. Was that death an accident, or is there something more sinister going on here, and where does Bree fit into all of this? Bree has to decide how far she'll go for the truth, and whether she should use her magic to take the society down, or join the fight. Own Voices is a complicated term, and discussing the relative benefits and complications of using it as a thing that we should be using, or a thing that we shouldn't be using, is far more complicated than I can fit into a video. Obviously, I'm not the person to be making any kind of authoritative statements on that. But what really struck me about this book and thinking about Own Voices books is you can feel how much the author has poured herself into this narrative. One of the things that she talks about, it's either in the foreword or in the author's note, she talks about how she learned that in her family a lot of women were dying very young, and she wanted to explore that within her book. So you have this very real lived experience within these pages. And on top of that, one of the things that really stuck out to me was the way in which she describes characters, particularly their skin tones and hair, and that's something that I'm aware that non-black authors, particularly white authors, do tend to get very wrong. It's really beautiful to read. There's just some really great description in there that is so clearly written to be an example, I guess. In the themes and in the writing, that lived experience really pulls through. And that's probably the thing that stayed with me the most since reading this book in 2020. Having said that, it would be remiss of me not to bring up how fun this book is, because while this story does tackle some really difficult ideas and some really important ones as well, it also has a lot of elements of the really fun kind of tropey YA fantasy that I loved in the past. There were a lot of elements to this story that felt how I wanted the Shadowhunters books to feel. I think people who love YA will love this story. It's got a really quintessentially YA love interest. There are some great moments to it that really feel just, they have that essence of YA. And while that could have felt incredibly passé or a bit dated or cliched, Tracy Deonn writes in such a way that it feels new and it still feels fresh and good. So while you're aware that you're reading it and you can kind of go like, oh, this is a little bit silly, isn't it? At times. I'm not going to say that the important themes are silly. Just the essence of it. It feels familiar but without feeling stale or regurgitated at all. Do I swap out my battery now? I think yes. And we're back. I really liked the setting, and in particular I really liked how magic was used in this story. The story is set in a college campus, which helps keep things quite contained, which is good, but I also felt like a very real college campus, as opposed to a kind of TV caricature of what a college campus is like. I'm just thinking about Gilmore Girls and how that really never felt real. I say that as a 26-year-old, so I may already be completely out of date as to what college feels like. But broadly speaking, I thought that the setting was great, and the description of the different areas and the way that people interacted within college felt realistic. For me, it was very easy to get a clear picture of where I was as a reader. I think the way that magic is handled, I don't want to spoil it and it's tricky, but magic plays an important role in this book, and all I'll say is that the different aspects of magic within the story are very important, and I think that they are used well within the story in order to add to those themes. Is that enough to say? I think it will do. If I tell you much more, it will spoil things. Thinking back on it, this book didn't feel long when I was reading it, and it doesn't look long when you're just kind of holding it in your hand, but the font is absolutely minuscule. I don't know if that's just the paperback edition, but it is teeny weeny font, so it is a little bit long. That doesn't necessarily have an impact on your enjoyment of the story, but if you are very short-sighted like me, you may want to invest in a reading lamp to help you get through this book. That's a testament to the pacing of the book, that it doesn't actually feel like it's this long. It feels very fast-paced. It doesn't drag, it keeps you up to date, it keeps things feeling very... It pulls you along through, which is what I enjoy. I don't like to feel like I'm egging a book on. I want to be carried through a story. In terms of comparisons and other things you might want to read, I tend not to read a lot of YA that is set in the real world with a fantasy element added on. It's just not what I tend to pick up anymore. So with that in mind, my recommendations are more other YA by Black authors that you might enjoy. I think Raybearer is phenomenal. I'm so excited for the sequel. Song of Wraiths and Ruin is wonderful. Again, super excited for the sequel. If you're looking for adult fiction, N.K. Jemisin is always a good shout, but I would say that her book, The City We Became, is probably the one that will feel most familiar after reading this. It's another book that's real world, where people suddenly have to face that their reality is more than it seems. I didn't read very much YA in 2020 at all. What I did read was excellent, usually because it came really highly recommended, and I'm really glad that I got to pick this up. This was one of my 5-star reads. I definitely think it's well worth reading. I think that the sequel's going to be fantastic, and I just think it's great. Comment below with any other YA recommendations. As I say, at the moment I typically really only read YA when it comes highly recommended, so plonk those recommendations in the comments below, or anything else you want to say about this book or any others. I would love to hear it. While you're down there commenting, you can also follow me on all of my social media. You can subscribe because it makes me feel loved and appreciated. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Welcome back to Overbooked. Nope, that's not what I want to say. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews and to another episode, self from the YA-ness of it all. Nope, that's not how we say that.